Okay, good afternoon. It being just after 5, I'll declare the meeting open. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we meet on, the Nala Kala Burja and Southwest Bajara people. We acknowledge and respect their continuing connection to the land, waters and community, and we pay our respects to members of all communities and cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. We have an apology from Councillor Sciano. I think we have a quorum. Yep, we have a quorum, so that's good. Are there any declarations of interest? No, none received. So therefore we move to public question time, and I think Mr. Bone has a question or two.
Thank you, Mr. President. Earlier today I sent in some notes regarding my public question time. The initial comments were about errors of fact, if you like. The agenda document talks about the adopted rate structure. I'd like to point out that at this point of time it's not an adopted rate structure, it's only a proposed rate structure. Item 3 of the notes I sent in this afternoon is what I will read out now, with your permission. In my interpretation, the officer recommendation on page 9, which in part reads, reducing the gap between residential and commercial and in line with the Council's future direction to continue to reduce the rating gap to support a more equitable rating structure, I believe is quite inappropriate. May I respectfully ask, what is the Council's future direction on this subject? To the best of my knowledge, there is no formal process in place. Council may have had some sort of workshop, however, formal decisions cannot be made at such forums. So it would appear that the 3.5% increase in the commercial rate is probably derived from a workshop and was just a figure that was agreed. But could I point out that the Council has no formal position on this at all? Consequently, the proposed industrial rate in the dollar of 7.9420 cents, representing an increase of 3.5% as against 2% elsewhere, and relates to a concession of 15.43. Should the same process be followed in future budgets, it will take years before parity is reached. I therefore ask the Council disregard the officer recommendation and propose that a commercial industrial rate for 2021-22 reduce the concession to at least 7.5% of the current gap to the residential sector. And my question is, in line with the discretion open to it pursuant to section 633(4), the local government is required to consider any submissions received before imposing the proposed rate or minimum payment with or without modification. Will Council adopt a higher commercial industrial rate in a dollar than the proposed 7.942 cents to lessen the current disparity to the residential rate in a dollar?
Mr. Bone, I can't answer to say what Council will do, but I do take on board your comments, and I think Council should consider the items you've raised. And in particular, I'd like to answer the first part of your question where you said we don't actually have an agreed or public position on narrowing that gap between those two differential rates. And it is incorrect to say that we have a plan to do so, and we should talk about that first as a council and make a decision on that, and then publish it if that's the way we're going. And I can tell you that I can't speak for the other councillors, but it is my position that yes, we should take on board the comments that we've received. after publishing these proposed rates, as you point out. And it is also correct that they shouldn't have been called adopted, they should have been called proposed. And as far as I'm concerned anyway, I do plan to tonight take on board the submissions that have been raised, your comments tonight, and hopefully we'll have a good discussion, and these things are not set in stone yet.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So we'll move to the annual budget and the differential rates submissions. This item is to consider the submissions that we've received, and I believe we all have a copy of them. Is there anyone that wishes to move the officer recommendation? Can I have a mover and a seconder, if that's the plan? Moved, Councillor Kitchen. Seconded, Councillor Noonan. Councillor Kitchen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, I'll move the officer's recommendation. It is that time of year again, I suppose, where we make one of probably the most unpopular but most important decisions in our role as elected members on behalf of the community. I've had a look through the public submissions, all 13 of them, 12 regarding the specified area rate in Dalyalup, and I acknowledge those comments. However, I think it's quite clear from the officer's report why there's the need for that increase in that rate. That reserve is falling a little bit out of the 50% target that is set for that around that specified area rate, and we do have significant cost increases in that area. Since 2008, we've had only 2 sites were under our control at that time. We now have 59, and there's quite a few still to come. That's seen the expenditure grow from about $500,000 to nearly $1 million, just in that area of Dalyalup, and what an area it is. And that's why we need that specified area rate to make sure that that beautiful area of this Shire continues to be maintained at that high standard that it is. And then the 13th comment that, sorry, not the 13th, the comments that have been raised tonight about the commercial rate, I do agree there should be less of a concession in that area. There was, I suppose, the idea that if we have the lowest rate on our commercial zonings, it might entice that commercial sector to come to the local government, but to the local government area, but it probably hasn't worked as well as it ought to have. So it's probably time that was pulled back and more of the rate base gets to an even keel. I suppose about raising it quite quickly, I suppose, you know, I prefer the staged approach if that's what it is, a sort of modest increase year on year. I do understand the point, but our residential rates are about $1,600 on average. The commercial rate is about $7,500 on average. So a large percentage increase in that would be quite a bit harder for those commercial operators to handle. And while they are operating to make a profit, given the year we have had, going back through COVID, asking them for a large increase all at once might not be the most appropriate measure. So I'd prefer more of a staged approach over 4, maybe 5 years to get that back to a equitable level. So going forward, yes, I'm happy to endorse the officer's recommendation. I think it's quite modest based on the percentages I've seen other local government areas going for. We are the lowest, I believe. So that's a testament to the financial controls and measures of this administration and this council. So I put the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. I'd like to, well, it's going to be difficult to move on. The amendment I wish to move, which would be difficult to do on the information that's in front of us, is to revert to the current level of rates and the current level of the Dalyalup specified area rate. And so I'd need some assistance from the officers to change the figures. So the only way to do that is to move the current recommendation in front of us, but to change the figures in the table. So if so, I'll put forward the amendment see if I get a seconder, and if we do go forward with it, then I'll need the officer's assistance to change the figures in the table. So that's what I'm moving. Are you seconding? Councillor Clues is seconded. So that amendment is now on the table, but without the is on the table without the table, if you know what I mean. So
If you don't, Mr. President, perhaps if it pleases, it might be easier to amend it to simply strike out 2 and then replace it with your amendment.
but then number 1 would have to change too, and I don't know what the figure would be for the developed specified area rate cap. If someone can help me with that figure, I could do it that way. But I'll do it the way I propose, and I think we can move ahead with the amendment and see how we go, and then we can perhaps clarify it in the fullness of time. So as having a seconder and having it on the table, I'll speak to the amendment. So the reason I've moved this amendment to go back to what our rates currently are and to the specified area currently are is that I've taken on board the detailed submissions that have been made to us. And I reject what Councillor Kitchen said that 13 of the 14 were about the specified area rate, because although they mention the specified area rate, they talk about, most of those objectors talk about the overall increase in rates too being unfair. And the other thing they point out is that it's inappropriate in the middle of a pandemic, as a lot of them put it, where people are already suffering in various ways, including financially. And I've taken that on board. And the other reason I'm moving the amendment is that I'm of the view in general that when there are requirements of things that we might decide or might put forward, requirements of them to go out for public comment, that it shouldn't be just a box ticking exercise. Oh yes, we went out for public comment, we got public comment, and then we totally ignored it. I believe that what we should do is read carefully, take on board the public comment. Basically, it's like doing a survey. We've done a survey of residents. These are the responses we've received from the people interested enough to respond, and they've been 100% opposed to what we put forward. Now, I think it's beholden on us not to just say thanks very much, but no thanks. It's beholden on us to take that on board, think carefully about it, and say, can this Shire go on with the same rates that we raised last year? Which I didn't notice any great hiccup. I didn't notice anything not being done. I didn't notice things going to rack and ruin. I didn't notice wholesale redundancies. I think we had the same staff levels. So I think we can go forward, and particularly in the middle of a pandemic, as these people have pointed out, things are different. These are difficult times for everybody. And it's not the time to say, oh yeah, full steam ahead, let's raise some more money, let's get bigger and better, let's do more and more, and let's let the ratepayers suck up the pain. I don't think we should. I think we should be prudent. I think we should pull back from this, and this is our chance to do it, and it sends a message to the community that we're listening. Councillor Clues.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for your amendment. I was going to speak against the original item, so I'm pleased that you've put that to us. Yeah, couldn't agree more with your sentiment. There's so many things I'm not pleased with in not only the way that this has come to us today, but the way that this was even born as a suggestion. You know, look, the resident asking questions earlier was exactly right. We didn't have any council decision suggesting that we change any of these things or make any movements to any specific areas or anything of the like. His assertion or his assumption was in fact correct. We did have a workshop or two, and where these figures came from was from going around the table and asking councillors what they think. This wasn't with a table full of documentation showing why we need to increase rates, why we need costs to go up here and costs to do there. There was nothing at all in front of us. It was simply a feeling of what the councillors at the table on that day thought. And I think that's not good enough. If we're going to suggest to increase rates, I want to know why. I want to know why costs are going up. I want to know exactly what costs are going up. I want to see the expectations and of the costs into the future, some planning, and then we come to planning. We're currently about to look at a strategic community plan that will follow up with a corporate business plan and many other plans, as well as the new CEO beginning next week. We have a big, bright future ahead of us with lots of fantastic planning to do. Until that planning's done and we have some idea of some direction that we're going in, I cannot possibly support increasing rates directionless. That's what we would be doing. We have no plans in place to build anything in the next 5 years of anything significant. We've got no set plans. We want things done and we go and ask for, okay, well, a bike path. We're all really keen and keep talking about this bike path. There's no plan in place. There's a Google map image that's been printed out with a drawn line on it. Hopefully we can have it there one day. What are we increasing rates for? We're not planning on building anything. I do have some problems with the disparity between the commercial and residential rates, as has been pointed out, and I do think that gap needs to be closed faster. I think that probably the residents of the Shire have been subsidising commercial for quite a long time, and it's probably not necessary. As well, then we move on to the special area rate. We're charging Dalyalup residents a special area rate, and the idea was that from what everyone's told is that it's supposed to cover 50% of the costs of Dalyalup special parks and gardens. I've asked for some background to where this 50% came from, and there's nothing in the Act. My assumption was always that this was some kind of Act derived thing, that 50% had to be what came from specialised area rate. Not the case. It came from some background information from a document that was an agenda item at Council in 2002. It wasn't part of the motion, it wasn't part of the decision, it was just some background information. So we're hanging on to that like it's gospel, and I don't know why. And to be honest, if it's 50% you're after, Dalyalup is much more than 50% as far as rate base goes of the Shire of Capel. They're already paying more than 50% simply by being bigger than everyone else. So perhaps it's time we look at doing away with this double dip of special area rate. What else do we do? Again, as you were saying, Mr. President, the feedback we've received. Look, I know it's only 13 members of the public that decided to provide feedback. We came in here to this new council 2 years ago very, very keen to change the way we communicate, actively seek feedback and receive feedback from this Shire. We've done a pretty good job so far. We could definitely improve, but we've done surveys and all sorts of things to try and get people talking to us, letting us know what they want. We want this Shire to be driven by the residents, not 6 or 8 or 9 people sitting in this room that know what everyone wants. We've done that. We've asked. We've put out for comment. We've received some. If we now knock those comments back and don't take them on board when 100% of them all said the exact same thing, 100%, how do we then say, oh yes, we are a council that wants to actively seek feedback and take that feedback on board and listen to you people? It's ridiculous, I think. You can't do that. It's not possible. All we do is just dismiss everyone's desire to do better. The residents are going to be saying, yep, just like everyone else, they don't listen to us still. Nothing's changed. We want change. We got in here wanting change. If people don't want a rate rise and they don't get a rate rise and we start struggling for money, they'll see struggle for money. No one's seen it yet. It hasn't happened yet. Everything's going fine. The sky hasn't fallen down as we were constantly threatened with for years and years. Everything's fine. I think everything will still be fine. In the last 2 years, and only very recently, was there one single instance of an item coming to our table that a acting CEO or one of his wonderful staff have come up with a plan to save us $100,000 a year on making some modifications to how we do some gardening in Dalyellup, I think it was. One time in 2 years, we've saved money. Come on, we can do a lot better than this, and I'd challenge us, and I'd like to see us do a lot better than this before we go making extraordinary rate increases. It's not just 2%, it's a lot more than that. It's doubling the specified area rate, 100% more on specified area rate. It's much more than 2% for the commercial. This is much more than a 2% increase. I cannot possibly support this.
Well, you are supporting it's the amendment. Is there any other speakers for or against the amendment? Councillor Andrew.
Can I just ask a question to Samantha through the chair? What is the and it's probably in the documentation, but I apologise, it would take me longer to find it than it will probably to ask you. What percentage of our ratepayers are on the minimum rate?
Hi, thank you for your question. The majority of our ratepayers on the minimum rate are in the vacant lots, hence why we're going for ministerial approval. The actual percentage, I'd have to come back to you on that figure, but the majority is in our vacant zones.
Anyone else wishing to speak for or against the amendment? Councillor Noonan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Could I ask a question again through the chair of Samantha? And I know this is a difficult question, but could you give us some sort of idea of the impact of retaining the 2020-21 rate of 0%?
Councillor Noonan, I'm not going to allow that question actually, because that is a question that that invites the exec manager to participate in the debate. And it's such an open-ended question. It's not a question of, a verifiable fact. It calls for an opinion, is not what I'm saying. So if you don't mind, would you rather just contribute to the debate yourself, yes or no, for or against?
Yes, I will. And I will speak for the amendment. Last year, when we came up with the 0% rate rise, the 0% rate, I think that was a good move and a sound one, a logical one. We did it because of the uncertainty that was surrounding COVID and the uncertainty that many people had in their employment and income and so on. We, as Mr. Bone correctly pointed out, we did have workshops. We have had workshops and discussions about looking this year and the potential of a rate rise. That happened in that window over the last couple of months when things were looking pretty good. There was no COVID, there's still no COVID in WA, but New South Wales and Victoria were also virtually COVID-free. The current situation in New South Wales is day by day becoming more concerning, as well as in Victoria and Queensland. And so I think that Australia as a whole is still and will be for at least another 6 to 12 months be in this twilight zone of not really knowing what the impact is going to be on the economy and so on. A lot of people are doing very well. WA is currently having a bit of a mining boom and construction boom, and that's a good thing. However, it hasn't percolated or permeated to every part of society, and there are still people in WA who are doing it tough, doing it very tough. I think we can do more, or that we should demonstrably show that we have done more in attempting to find cost savings. I think that there's the strategic plan, which we have the draft of, and is an excellent document. I think that can help us do that. I agree with Councillor Kitchen that and Councillor Clues that we should perhaps look at increasing the commercial rate. That has been kept deliberately low to entice businesses to move to Capel Shire, but that hasn't happened. And so, I suppose we could perhaps leave that at last year's rate for another year to see whether there is an appetite in a more confident business environment. However, we are, we have the residents of the Shire subsidising the commercial sectors, and in effect, in comparison to other shires, and if that's not enough to entice commercial operators to move here, then I don't know that keeping it that low is going to help at all. With the special area rate, I take on Councillor Clue's point, and very well made, that it is in fact a double dip given that Dalyalup does pay meet over half of the rates of the entire Shire. It's worth pointing out that because of the boom in construction, particularly in Dalyalup, that our rates take will increase over this next year anyway. It's also worth pointing out that we do in fact still have money in reserves. In fact, there are millions of dollars in reserves. I think that the same argument that we made last year to keep the rates at 0% can still be made for this year, given the current status of the pandemic. So I will be voting for the amendment.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Andrew.
Thank you. I'm going to speak against the motion. Councillor Clues, the amendment. Councillor Clues asked what kind of expenses have gone up. We've discussed numerous times that the raw price of sand and gravel has gone up exponentially. I've just done a quick Google search. On Synergy's website, their power rates are going up 1.75%. The Water Corporation, our water prices are going to go up 2.5%, and insurances are going to go up an average of 2.74% this year. A 2% rate increase doesn't even cover those, so we're still going to have to find savings. As for the special area rate, I understand that it appears as though it's a double dip because of the amount of rates that get paid from Dalyalup. However, at the same time, when you purchase a property, your rates are disclosed to you by your real estate agent. The special area rate to cover the parks and gardens shouldn't be a surprise to any of the homeowners there. And I also think all you have to do is drive through Dalyalup to realise that they have parks, gardens, grassed areas, play equipment and facilities that you just don't find in a normal, regular suburb. It's very nature filled, which is lovely, but it comes at a price. All that grass needs to be watered. All that play equipment needs to be maintained. And we bear the brunt of all of those. And while I have respect for the residents that responded to the advertised notice, I'm doubtful whether across all the years that they've been required to be advertised, there's ever been a respondent that says, you know what, I recognise that utility charges are going up, so I'm happy to wear a rates increase. I'm just not sure that when you're putting something out for public comment that's dealing with increasing costs, you're always going to get the negative rather than the positive. So I'll be voting against the amendment, and because it has been mentioned quite a lot, I would have personally liked to have seen a bigger increase in commercial rates. It was something that was discussed. We decided to increment those increases over a longer period of time based on the average rates that commercial premises do pay. But I do agree that they are not necessarily carrying their full load that they should be.
Is there anyone else? Councillor Kitchen.
Yes, thank you. And I concur with the comments of Councillor Andrew. Look, just in starting, it's been talked that we didn't really have a discussion about these. Well, on the 30th of June, we endorsed this proposed rating structure for comment. So it's not a decision that's just been made behind closed doors. It is something that has been publicly said, hey, look, we're considering this. Look, I am against this amendment because it does not plan for our future. We've talked about what have we got coming up forward. Well, that's been spelled out in the strategic community plan and even in the new one, but especially the long-term financial plan. What about Fettlers Park? What about the Capel Oval? What about the shade sale program? They're all things that we have commitments to that we have to meet. Then, you know, all our programs of works, our car replacement, asset renewal, that's all things where costs are going up. We have to meet that. We're not immune to that. And we've had other expenditures crop up that we didn't expect, such as commodity prices, where we've seen something like gravel rise by 60%. But we've also had other things crop up, even our own assets, such as the Malacup Bridge. Where are we going to find the money for that? There's things like that we just have to deal with. And yes, we do have money sitting in reserve, but some of that is tailored to a specific purpose. But we have also had significant drawdowns on that, such as the community grants that we did about this time last year, which was a fantastic program. But that was money taken out of that strategic reserve, which could have gone towards some other piece of asset that the Shire actually had forward planning for. And you know, the 13 submissions we've got, I completely acknowledge them and thank them for taking the time to submit those. But we've also had recently our most recent strategic community plan where we've seen people say they want this Shire to prepare for its future, namely climate change. It wants to see some action on that. That's going to require quite a significant amount of capital investment from this local government, and that is something we are discussing on our climate committee. None of that comes for free, and that is something we have to work towards. But you know, we also have other issues like our sustainability ratios. I think we're sitting at about 45%, which is well below the industry standard of 90, which is required by the Act. You know, look at our gravel roads. We need to be re-sheeting 30 kilometres of that per year to meet that sustainability ratio. We currently only do 3. We've got a lot of areas we do have to improve. Unfortunately, we can't meet some of those areas. It's about meeting demands and distributing the buckets of money where it needs to go. But to do a zero is unfortunately just not sustainable, and it is not prudent financial management. And I know that's probably a rough thing to say sometimes, but I care about the future of this organisation more than I care about my back pocket right at this very minute. So, you know, I just can't see the sense in this amendment at this time. We have too many things coming forward, and as councillors we have privileged information and we do know what is coming forward. And that's why I look forward to our budget coming forward, seeing that in black and white, exactly what we're expecting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll sum up then. In particular, I wanted to sum up the points made by by Councillor Andrew and endorsed by Councillor Kitchen. And firstly, she says that the special area rate in Dalyalup is no surprise, that people are told about it when they buy in there. That's true, but increasing it being increased, it would be a surprise. They're not necessarily expecting that. Then she says that these things need to be maintained, these beautiful parks need to be maintained, the grass needs to be watered, was the quote. Well, one of the submissions that we've had says, and poses a very good suggestion, it says, what about less grass? Don't necessarily have to have every park big swathes of grass, which is, and I think you'll find that in people that talk about sustainability and you know, going forward, is they say don't have large areas of grass, have more native play areas and such. Then Councillor Andrew, backed up by Councillor Kitchen, says the play equipment there in those parks needs to be maintained. That's a reason for the special area rate. Well, I can see a rather big park outside this building, not in Dalyalup, very big park, probably the biggest one in the Shire, that probably needs to be maintained as well, but the people in Capel don't have to pay extra for it. Then Councillor Kitchen said, Councillor Kitchen said the decision was made in the June meeting, but then added sotto voce for comment. The decision was made to seek comment, and we sought the comment, and the comment was 100% opposed. So I'm taking that on board. Then Councillor Kitchen said, oh, well, we've got things coming up we have to do. He said, these things have to be done. Fettlers Park and Capel Oval upgrade. That's not necessarily the case. They don't have to be done. Those things aren't carved in stone. It might be nice for them to be done. We don't have to do anything. This council has to look after its residents and ratepayers, particularly in times like this, when we're in the middle of a pandemic, when there's a lot of uncertainty in the community. And it's time to listen to our community. And then finally, summing up, I want to make mention that Councillor Clues was talking about, he mentioned our draft strategic plan and how that says that we want to be a council that listens, that hears the community. And I take you to our draft strategic plan, and under the words deliver good leadership, governance and decision making, which is us, it says ensure stakeholder and community engagement processes are implemented in all major strategic projects to inform the decisions. Well, this is a major strategic issue that we have before us tonight, and we have some community feedback to inform our decision, and the community feedback says you're on the wrong track. So that's summing up. Let's put the amendment to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 4-2. That becomes a substantive motion. Is there any more? I think Councillor Kitchen has spoken, but is there any more debate on the substantive motion, or have we had the debate? Okay, I think we've had the debate. Let's put that one to the vote then. Those in favour? Those against? That's carried 4-2. Thank you. Now, unless I'm very much mistaken, that's the only item before us tonight. Is that right? I'll therefore close the meeting at 5:40 p.m. Thank you.